It's that time of the year again. Goodwood Revival. And what better vehicle than the Honda CR-V Hybrid? We had this, I think it was a year before last, but we didn't get a chance to do any big road trips in it. So this is going to be perfect. It's going to be about a 600-mile round trip. It's roomy, it's practical, and it gets good economy as well. As for the boot, power tailgate, fully loaded. Our journey is going to take us onto the M6 at Carnforth, then M40, and then we might go the Oxford way as well. Inside the cabin, comfortable, modern, and a wireless charging pad as well. Interesting shifter on this, but yeah, happy to do 600 miles in this. But no, I think we've chosen the right vehicle. Be interesting to see what we get per gallon, especially with my lead foot. It's rather ironic that we have a Navara on the drive as well, because this was the vehicle of choice to go to Goodwood Revival about 2 years ago, and it did a sterling job. But no, especially with the way the world is at the moment, and how it's going to be moving forward with ICE, this is the perfect vehicle for the journey. Welcome aboard the Honda CR-V. We're just about to join the M6, and then it's about, I think it's 319 miles to Chichester, but we're staying in Portsmouth, so we'll be getting off just before that. Economy, currently doing 35.6 to the gallon. It'll be interesting to see what we can achieve on this journey, especially with Mr. Leadfoot in the pilot seat. It'll also be interesting to see which route it decides to take us. It'll be interesting to take this on a long haul, because last time we just drove it locally. We ended up with quite a decent economy. I think it was around 50. Now I'm wondering if we can exceed that on a motorway journey. But it'll be interesting to see, because we've noticed with a lot of FEVs, when you take them onto the motorway, they start suffering and you end up with, well, if you're lucky, 45 to 50 to the gallon. But because this isn't plug-in, it'll be interesting to see how the hybrid powertrain assists. And I think it does about 17 electric when coasting. Because we're climbing a hill, we're using the petrol engine. If Annabelle just pans to the cluster a minute, you'll see what happens when I let off. Goes straight back into the charge bar, and then it went into EV momentarily at 55 miles an hour. We're in econo mode. We've also got sport as well, and yes, that is an EV button. You do notice a difference when you put it in economy mode. If you've got your foot down in sport mode and then hit economy, you have to put your foot down more and more and more, which makes sense, but you don't expect it to be that vast a difference, and it kind of is. Well, engaging sport has certainly made the powertrain more responsive, but it does feel weighted enough for motorway driving. I suppose the way to test it is on an A road, but you get good feedback. It feels nicely planted as well. Suspension wise, you hear more than you feel, which is always good. It's comfortable as a driver and a passenger. Yeah, it just feels good. Rear cross traffic alert, very handy. Harry Potter? I'll be finding that third gear. There we go. We can safely say that the Jaguar E-Type's on its way to Goodwood Revival. Gazoo know how to make a Yaris. 100% is where Fear Screeches was filmed. 3 miles away from Portsmouth, and that's where we're going to be staying for Goodwood Revival. 95 miles of range left and 1.8 miles to do. And we're getting 37.6 to the gallon. Right, if I'm sounding a bit gibberish, it's because I've been driving for 5 hours and had like a 2-minute break. Well, like 15-minute break. All in all, CR-V, great vehicle for doing this kind of run. And there's an even earlier gen of the CR-V. Automatic lights and high beam assist as well. It's rather responsive. They're LED lights, and they've got a good throw to them as well. Hailing Trust Honda to do some fun things with the cluster. When you're in sport, it's red. When you're in econ, it's green. So EV doesn't actually change the cluster at all. It just displays there and says EV. We've got 37.7 to the gallon. So it is actually helping our economy. Just had fish and chips, and it's now time to get some rest and attend Goodwood Revival at Goodwood Racing Circuit tomorrow. Yay! Very nice. Yes, I'm not in my normal attire, but that's because we're just about to enter the grounds of Goodwood Revival and the Goodwood Estate. So we're going to be seeing cars racing at the race circuit. But I was just thinking, driving through here, the fact that it's in EV mode, I suppose it's the complete opposite of most of the vehicles here, because this is an event for pre-66. And I think there may have been a handful of electric vehicles, things like milk floats, but that was about it. So, is this the new normal? Travelling around in hybrids and EVs?
I see these old cars. I used to know all these old cars. It's the new ones I don't know.
Cars and bikes heading to Goodwood Revival.
I was just about to say, it's not just cars you see.
Oh no, you've got your voice back, I forgot.
Yeah.
We're just meandering through Goodwood Revival's public car parks, and you can hear the CR-V has gone into electric mode. Sounds rather spaceshipy. So we're literally creeping down the car park, and all of a sudden people think I'm being followed, but they have no clue why.
Thank you. Case in point. Oh, bless.
The car's too quiet.
I know, exactly. Tell me about it.
Yeah. Oh, some nice cars over here.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you. Ladies' jackets, very nice.
Yeah, there's something reversing as well. Thank you.
Whoa.
Sign.
Thank you.
Hello again. How you doing? Yeah, I did. Thank you.
Thank you.
What did it say? Straight down here.
Yeah.
And this is the first generation. Changed quite a bit. Let's explore Goodwood Revival 2021.
So we'll be able to come up.
Well, let us say goodbye to Goodwood Revival for another year. Considering it wasn't on last year, they've really made up for it this year. By the end of this, the likelihood is it's going to be near 800 miles. And I reckon we're going to be averaging around 40 to 45 miles per gallon, if I can hold it down. Jumping in one of these is really easy. You can literally just get in, you can set things like the cruise control with the touch of a button, you can select your driving modes down here very easily. And I suppose that's what's good about it for, say, a road trip. But the one thing I have noticed is, in roadwork sections, because they're narrower carriageways, the vehicle does have an inherent challenge, and that's the fact is, when you're travelling next to something, the cross-traffic monitoring thinks the car is closer than it really is, because the carriageway is thinner. Therefore, it starts doing evasive action, like, well, not emergency stops per se, but it does anchor up and say, wait a minute, there's not enough room there. And that's when you're staying centred in your lane. It's not all the time, but it is sometimes. But I suppose that's just like scraping the bottom of the barrel. If Annabelle pans left now, you will see a beautiful view. An Evo. Really? Look at that exhaust.
Oh. No, that's a Mitsubishi Lancer.
It is. It is not an evolution. Other times come, I can no longer sit in eco mode, so it's sport all the way. I was still getting just under 40 to the gallon, so I'm quite happy with that, to be honest.
Do pretty well.
And I'm using hard acceleration quite a bit as well. Pro drive!
Pro drive. It isn't a road trip unless we go past Pro Drive.
We're back in traffic again. And I'm using the adaptive cruise control because it just makes it so much easier. Just follow the car in front, and if I'm a bit far or too near, I can just adjust with this here. Also, I have noticed if I take the hand off the steering wheel for any kind of time, it starts screaming at me. It's a good thing. We have got 104 miles of range left, and we're now getting 37.2 mpg. And the way I've been driving, no, I'm impressed with that. So the bottom line is, if you're going to be driving around countrysides and going to garden centres, you're going to be getting probably closer to 45, 50. But if you're going to be doing motorway journeys, then, and like me, you like to put your foot down periodically, you're going to be about 40.
And here we are at our second home, the M6 toll.
Now let's spray some, ooh, nice spray.
Is everything alright with your car?
Okay, it's pretty loud under load. It's not best pleased if you floor it. Saying that though, it's got a really nice sound when you're on a decent bit of motorway. There's hardly any noise inside the cabin, so that's good. About 60 miles from home, but our economy is sat at 37.4 and it's not going to get any better. So I've had an amazing idea. Why don't we try and do an eco run when we go to SMMT on Monday in Wetherby and use the A roads and see how high we can get the economy.
Sounds like a plan.
I was going to say, we'll check back in then, won't we? Very funky, futuristic. People get running from me on the motorway. Now I know why. This thing looks sinister, especially with those headlamps. I love the flow of these rear LEDs as well. It just looks very smart. We've just done 650 miles in it. We've got another 200 to do in about 2 days. Can't wait. We're just loading up because we're about to embark on our second trip, and this one's going to be an economy run, and we're going to SMMT North, Wetherby. We've got a petrol light on, and we've done 5,884 miles. Well, the car has. We've done about 600. Economy, well, I'll have to tell you when we've refueled, but I assume it's around 37.4. So the aim is, the Crag Road is shut, which means all the vehicles here have to reverse up because there's an 8-wheeler gravel truck coming. This is the problem with shutting the Crag.
And we're through.
We are. Because the thing is, if you're low on fuel, you can't get the fuel computer to display. I've pressed every mortal button. In the words of Foster's, I can see the pub from here, even though we don't do pubs. Food? Yes. Cheeses? Yes. I know cheese is food, but cheese is cheese.
I think cheesecake's my favourite.
That's where George Washington was born. That's why this pub on the right is called the George Washington. Weird, isn't it? It sounds quite loud now, the hybrid system. But when we were at Goodwood, nobody could hear us in that field.
No, not at all.
We were like a stealth ninja creeping up on people, and then people would literally turn around to us and say, "Your car's too quiet." What's your car's too quiet? I've never ever had that said to me ever. Nice. That has to be imported.
I don't think I've seen one of those before.
Let's see
The
if
roundabout takes
we can
the
get an
third
eco
exit
run on.
onto M6.
So what we're going to try and do on this run is try and use electric as much as possible to push up our economy. We're also going to
In a
coast
quarter
as
of a
much as
mile,
possible,
Turn left.
and we're going to try the paddles because I can't quite work out if they're for shifting or if they're for regen braking. No harsh acceleration, which is going to be hard. I'm just going to have to drive gently. That does not play into my ballpark, but needs must. People want to know the economy of these hybrid vehicles, especially if they don't plug in. Because we found the Jazz was very
turn
good.
Right onto Nethercallum
It's a
Road.
similar system, but it is much bigger. So that was getting, I think it's about 52 to the gallon. So if we ended up with 48, 47, I'd be happy with that. To aid me in my non-acceleratory ways, I think the best option is going to be to use the adaptive cruise control, because that should be set to economize. Oh my word, I hope people know we're here. Should be set to economize far better than my right foot. It does appear that the paddles are regen, so you've got 4 levels. We've gone up 0.1 of an MPG, which isn't bad considering we've done about 3/4 of a mile. Now I'm not going to give you a blow-by-blow account. What we'll do is we'll come back in say 30 miles. On your cluster you've got an economy bar, and even when you're using cruise control, when you hear that, whoa, engine whir, collision detection just displayed. It's on point. You'll see it drastically drop, and that's the thing about this engine, or powertrain should I say. Because of the electric motor and the petrol engine and the CVT style gearbox, it makes a bit of noise even when it's doing slight acceleration. I just hope that system works well in economy, because predominantly that's what it was developed for. We've got 64 miles to go. If we were going on the motorway, it'd be about 110 miles. One thing I have noticed when using adaptive, especially on A roads, is it does tend to use EV a lot more than it would on the motorway. It would use it coasting quite a bit, but when you're on an A road, it seems to use it the majority of the time. Now, gaining economy is not going quite as well as I expected it to. We're now at 37.1, and I'm driving about as economically as I possibly can. With adaptive cruise, as soon as the car in front disappears, then for some reason the CRV thinks gun it, and then just drops it and floors it to catch the car in front. But there's no way of really kind of mitigating that. But if you're going into a corner too fast with adaptive, it seems to slow you down. So in a word, we've gained 0.3 of a mile over about 20 miles with me driving economically. Don't expect this to leap up on a 10-mile journey. If you can manage to drive economically to, say, Somerset from here, then you may have gained 7 miles. It is using EV a lot, and the range doesn't seem to be dropping either. Pretty good road holding. Now, there is a fair bit of movement in the cabin, body roll if you will. Steering, it's nice and direct, just weighting up nicely at speed as well. Good feedback. Check out our full review. We had I think it was about 2 years ago. The thing is, the vehicle hasn't changed very much in that time. It's the perfect vehicle for, say, commuting. We've got 176 miles. Now, I'm sure we left with about 200, just over 200. So it's economizing somewhere. I just can't quite work out where. We get to see some beautiful countryside. That was probably about a 2-mile pull uphill, and the range has dropped 3 miles. We're now in EV mode, and there's a hawk. Very swoopy road this. So yeah, 37.2, and that's that. Back into sport mode. Well, we tried. Okay, it wasn't strictly true that that was the end. I thought I'd put it in sport mode and floor it for a bit, for about 3 or 4 miles, and then see how that affected it. And we're still at 37.2. So it doesn't seem to matter whether you're in sport or economy. We're on a damn good road. And even at like 60 miles an hour, it still feels pretty grippy. The one thing I have noticed is the body movement has certainly increased. But cornering grips well. You don't lose the back end. It just... oh, great fun. It may be hybrid, but it doesn't seem to matter how I drive it. That's rather strange. I've been driving in sport this whole time, and now we're getting better economy. 37.4. Well, wonders never cease. This car just keeps surprising. It really does. I think what you take away from this is the way it's economical is your range just doesn't drop. It won't go back up, but it'll then sit on like 112 for ages, like you've done 12 miles, and it'll still say you've got 112 miles of range. Even though I was driving pretty quickly in sport mode. And when we got to Burton and Lonsdale, we had about 33 miles of range left. we had 26.5 miles to go, and I thought there's no way on earth we're going to be able to do this. And we've done 25 of those miles, and our range is showing 18 miles. So it's economised massively, even though the MPG's not actually gone up. 37.5, and yeah, it's pretty economical, weirdly, in sport mode. So take from that what you will. That's what we found. And look, there's another one there on the right.